on automating threat intelligence analysis and sharing by Cyber. For the duration of presentation, all participants line will be in listen-only mode. We also have a panel of Cyber experts on call to answer any queries you may have. We will have the Q&A session post the presentation. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you may also send them across to all panelists using the chat window on the right-hand side of your console. In view of COVID-19 lockdown, our teams are hosting this webinar from their home environments. We have planned this event to ensure minimal disruptions to the service during the event for your seamless experience. In case we face any unexpected disruptions, please be patient. We would like to take the necessary steps to restore the service immediately. Also would like to request you to please participate in the polling questions before the start of the presentation. Your opinion is valuable for us. So now, without further delay, I would like to hand over the proceedings to the esteemed speaker, Mr. Afkas Katheria, VP, Head of Research and Innovation from Cyber. Mr. Afkas, welcome to the program. You're now ready to begin.
Thank you, Rudy. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the session on automating threat intelligence analysis and sharing. Threat intelligence itself is very well-known terminology into the cyber security. And when we say threat intel, it goes back to our physical world as well, where in cyber we have seen the adoption of this terminology. But any strategy, I personally see that somewhere comes from our physical wars as well. So we will be deep diving today onto from very basics concept of threat intelligence as well as the advanced framework and how cyber threat intel exchange can help you achieve those. So let me just start with just a minute. Okay, so we will be covering the threat intelligence. What is threat intelligence? Then we will go through the life cycle. We will have the overview of the cyber threat intelligence exchange, and then the three important aspects of the threat intelligence, which is automation, the technical to tactical shift which is happening in terms of strategy, and then the whole intel collaboration, why and how part of the collaboration using the CITEX. But before we go into the discussion, one question which people keep asking about threat intelligence is, and again the whole definition will vary from people to people and based on the perception and the adoption in specific environment. So I'll tell you a little bit background how I got introduced to the threat intelligence. Very first, when I was managing the security operations center for a large bank, almost 9 years, 10 years back. So the whole concept of SIEM, or the Security Operations Center, was coming up, and we have this challenge where when you want to detect some anomaly into the network traffic, the network traffic is always huge, and to find identify some malicious packet into that network traffic is like finding a needle in a haystack. And that's where people started realizing that how can we correlate this huge network logs with something which can give me more meaningful information about the attack or probable attack which my organization will be facing. And that's where the whole threat intel feed got introduced by a lot of SIM providers, the security vendors that time. Also, a lot of communities got started at that time to start sharing the attack information with each other and proactively correlate those information with your logs which you are analyzing within your SOC. So if you see, this is more of predictive in nature. So all the CISOs, CIOs today adapt specific cybersecurity risk framework. So the popular one, if we can see, is the NIST framework, which says identify what all assets, what is the horizon which you are trying to protect, then comes the prevent, then comes the detect. So in prevent, we try to prevent the attacker first by putting the preventive security controls. But we know attackers are also smart and they are gaining edge day to day over the technology. And obviously, they will find new ways to bypass those preventive controls. And that's why we have whole lot of detective controls put in place. So even if some attacker is able to bypass any of my preventive controls, how good or how fast I can detect those. And that's where the technologies like SIM, UBA, Embed is coming into picture. And as we go towards the same journey, we know that it will generate a lot of alerts, incident which needs to be investigated, and we don't have that much manpower to respond and to go into the depth of each and every alert. And that's where whole the response as a strategy bucket has come out in last few years, where now people are also focusing on, once you have good detection in place, how effectively you will respond. Because if you see any attack which has happened in the past, if you take example of a Target, Sony, or any a large data breach, most of the time uh, they had the best in class technologies to prevent the attack, even to detect the attack, but somewhere response was crucial for all those attacks. And obviously, if it is more human dependent, if it is not practiced continuously, it's very high chance that somebody might miss a critical alert, or maybe alert treated as a false positive. So that's why the focus on the response has increased. And the last strategy bucket, which we have seen recently picked up in last 1 2 years, where people are now started focusing more on the prediction of the threats, that how I can predict the attack beforehand, uh, even if if they plan to target against my organization. And that's where the whole threat intelligence uh, is becoming crucial to give that predictive advantage to the organization. And people started with the technical feeds mostly, but that's one type of the story. There are many things around the whole threat intelligence concept. So let's first understand the difference between when people say this threat data, threat information, threat knowledge. So if you see this pyramid, I know all of us know this difference already, but if you see, whatever the first layer of the data which you receive, it's the threat data. Because right now you don't have any context, somebody has shared that information with you, maybe your security partner, about any attack happening on other geography, other sector somewhere, or any peer group, or you have come across that information through some news report, blog, article. So there are many ways from which threat data can come to you. The next important step in the cycle is to make sure you apply the context to any data which you receive, and that's where it will become an information for you. Otherwise, it's just a data for you. So as we see today, we receive so many news article, blog, IOCs, but if you don't have a context around those data, it is just a data, it is not an information even. So for example, if I am a bank, I'm a large financial institute, and if somebody shares me in a report of nuclear power plant getting targeted by, let's say, malware called Stuxnet, it's good. It's a cyber threat which somewhere on the other geography, other industry is facing. It's good to know. But how you decipher this threat data, and how you contextualize this data? So that is what much important to make it more information level. And then once you start using this information, once you start applying this information, that's where we will start generating a knowledge. And that's why I say knowledge is more of applied information. And let's say I got intel from somewhere, I contextualize, say that okay, this intel is related to Windows Server 2012, and yes, I use Windows Server 2012 in my organization, so this intel is relevant to me. Now I apply this intel in my infrastructure, maybe to the preventive technology, detective technology, or during incident response I applied those data, those information. And then I see some observations, say some I saw some attempt, some attackers attempting to exploit those vulnerability, or exploit those malware or similar TTPs I'm observing within my infrastructure. And that's where now you are generating knowledge. You just need to start documenting and keep repeating the cycle so that it will be useful for your organization, as well as when you start collaborating, it will be useful for other organization as well. So the threat intelligence is the middle tier of this pyramid, which is somewhere information. When you are transiting your data into the information, and also somewhere between the information to the knowledge, this is where the whole threat intelligence comes into the picture. But the most important thing is the types of threat intelligence, because I keep hearing from many conversation which I have been the community or with the CISOs or the CIOs, that uh, what level and how do we strategize our whole threat intelligence program? Because what we start today, or most of the organization are focusing today, is more on the technical aspects of the threat intel. But there are four types of threat intelligence. If you see: strategic, operational, tactical, and technical. So if you see, I have divided this into the two parts, the left side and the right side, because I see left side, which is strategic and operational, which is more focused toward the human, because this kind of information will be more for the human to ingest, human to read, and human to take action upon. While the right side, tactical and technical, is more for machine, where machine can directly consume this information, can enrich, can act on this information. So it's always a macro versus micro. And I'm not saying that we don't do everything. We are doing, but it's somewhere in bits and pieces. While I would say 70% focus will be still on technical aspect, we might be having 20 on tactical, and 10 on strategic operational. Strategic, I still see, is somewhere we are doing, but more on an unstructured manner, when you have subscribed to some advisories or some news articles or the blog for some security products or any security vendors, which lands into your mailbox, or somebody forwards you something, and then you start acting on those articles or advisory. Or sometimes we see regulatory bodies also publishes some framework or some threat advisories, which as a human we consume and we act upon. Well, similarly, on the operational aspect, we have seen now companies are going ahead and subscribing to the services like dark web monitoring, surface web monitoring, where I want to make sure that if anybody into the dark web or in the surface web, social media, talking about exploiting any vulnerability which my organization has, or maybe they are trying to sell some of my customer data, customer information of my organization. So there are many information which is somebody is trying to share over the surface web or dark web, and I want to keep a vigil on those information into the dark web, surface web, and I want to get alerted, informed well in advance if something like that happens. And that's where the whole operational intelligence comes into the picture. While technical, I don't need to tell much. We all deal with the technical in day in day out, the IOCs, the indicators of compromise, right? The malicious IP, domain, URL, hash, email IDs from which you receive the phishing emails. So there's a whole different types of technical indicators which we keep on harnessing, keep on acting upon those indicators on a day-to-day basis. Tactical intel is something which is very interesting, and I've seen across the globe many organizations have started focusing more on the tactical intelligence. If anyone, if you have heard about the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is again revolving around the whole TTP concept. So we are all aware about the cyber kill chain, which is high level phases of the attacker, how attacker plan and move for one particular objective within one organization or within one target. Similarly, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a drill down version of the kill chain, where you have the tactic, which is very similar to the kill chain phases, and then you have a technique, which is how you will perform or what kind of things you can do amongst each and every tactic. So people are now started moving, focusing towards the tactical aspect, where I want to know what kind of tool, what kind of tactics, what kind of procedures attackers are using, and I want to document those. document those learnings, and then I will put the security control against those TDP. Why tactical is important? Let's take one example. Let's say I'm an attacker and you are a defender. I craft one malware. I target your organization. I send that malware to one of the user, and user clicks on it and compromise his laptop or a desktop. Now you're as a defender, you get the malware sample. The first thing that we do is we calculate the malware hash. We process it into the antivirus solution. We block this hash. Also, we try to identify any CNC URL, command and control, the file path. We try to block the indicators of this compromise or this specific threat, and we try to block on across the enterprise. But now let's say as an attacker, if I have this compiled code which I will go and change one or two line into my code. I will recompile the code. I will resend this code to the same organization or the other organization, and now I have changed the hash. So previous control which you have put to block specific hash will no more valid, because I just change the hash by adding or by changing my code in a minor fashion, or maybe a CNC infrastructure I was having deployed on my cloud, which I was using AWS, and then I went ahead and spin up the new AWS machine. I started hosting a new domain where I started communicating whole my CNC communication. So changing the technical indicators for an attacker is easy. But let's say if as a defender, when you receive this malware sample, you do the sandbox analysis of this sample, you try to identify, okay, this malware, what are the things it was trying to do? So you start extracting the TTPs out of this indicator. You open up, you do the static analysis, dynamic analysis, and start mapping, saying that what kind of technique this tool was trying to perform, and then you go ahead and put the countermeasures against those TTPs. So now when attacker will if uses the same tactic, you have now countermeasure against those TTP. So you will definitely go even if the attacker change the hash a little bit code, you have the countermeasures, and attacker needs to go and find out new technique to perform that specific task. And now you have bought more breathing period against the attacker. It doesn't mean that attacker will not be able to perform or not be able to identify new technique, but it will take a lot of time. Might be changing a hash was 1 hour or maybe a 5-minute job, while changing the TTP will take me to recompile a 30 day, 60 day, or a 90 day. So that's how whole tactical intelligence is helping the organization to keeping ahead the attackers in this time. Moving towards the framework or the life cycle, where I see from the maturity perspective, many organization first level, at least you start aggregating or start ingesting the threat intel information from multiple places, and you start building the database of all the threat intelligence at your level, because collection is the very first steps towards the starting your threat intel journey. You should start consuming most of the threat data, and then you start enriching those data with the internal context as well as the external context. You need to build a context around those data. That's why I was showing that pyramid, that so this second step becomes an important to convert your data into the information, and then based on those information, if you jump here, you will do a lot of decision making, that what data is important to you and what is not, what is priority for you, what is not the current priority for you, and then you start acting on those information. And if you see, I have put collaboration in the center, which is also one of the key aspect. We will cover this into the detail why this is important. But as we all know, intelligence or information has to be collaborative effort. If we go back to our physical world also, like we have our national level intelligence agency, which keep an eye on all the external threats as well as the internal threats. They keep on collecting this data, collecting this information, and they keep passing this information to the law enforcement agency, which are regional, so that they can act on those intelligence in a real time, and they can avoid any attack which might happen from external or might happen within the organization. So that's why this collaboration is also important within the organization as well as outside the organization, how you can collaborate the threat intelligence. And if you see, I have also tried to plot the things that what machine and what human can play the role. So maybe ingestion is pretty much now automated. We have so many tools. Threat intel platform technology has come up, which we will see in the next slide. The cyber threat intel exchange is also one of the threat intel platform. So those kind of platform has come, which can easily fully automate your intel ingestion from multiple sources. Like if you have structured sources or unstructured sources, structured sources like API, Stix taxi, JSON, XML, or unstructured sources like intel coming to me via news, article, blog, email. So all those unstructured and structured sources can be automatically ingested into the tool, and the tool will keep collecting those information for you. And enrichment is still semi-automated, because most of the enrichment, which is like machine based, where you want to look up to the sources like VirusTotal or the malware sandbox, those can be automated. But there are many enrichment which human is able to do in terms of creating a lot of relations manually, and many other internal enrichment. That's where human and machine will play a collaborative role. While collaboration, again, it's still semi-automated. We'll see some examples. Decision making, obviously, machine can help you at the greater extent, where the whole scoring, automated scoring of the intel, automated segregation of the intel can be done by the machine. And the same way, human are still equally collaborating when it comes to more strategic operational threats to analyze. And the response, we have still semi-automated, where all the technical is fully automated, technical is partially still automated, strategic operational are still human driven aspects of the threat response. So till now we have covered the concepts of the overall threat intelligence, the types of threat intelligence, the life cycle, but this a question comes that when do we use, and how to use this whole threat intelligence. So the first pillar is the before an attack. So when you are not under any attack, that doesn't mean you are not supposed to do anything, right? We always say precaution is better than cure. That we keep on making sure, putting right security controls, capturing right information. We also proactively do the risk assessment, risk management, to make sure that any risk which my organization is facing, which is more futuristic in nature, I want to be prepared well, and I want to keep putting the controls around those risks which I may face in the future. So the similar way in threat intel also, we keep collecting the attack information which other geography, other sector, other companies are facing, and we keep learning from those attacks, and we keep applying those attack information to my organization, so that if someone performs the same attack against my organization, I am already protected for those kind of attack. Similarly, during the attack, obviously, you will face lot of attack, lot of incident will be faced, and you will be generating a lot of information. As I was showing in the pyramid, the top part, the knowledge, you will be keep generating a lot of knowledge when you face any attack. So it is important that you're continuously documenting and analyzing the attack indicators, and not just the technical indicators, but you are also pulling out the tactical intel out of that. Because as I give the example of that malware sample, if when your organization is facing such attack, rather than just keeping at the malware level, if you keep extracting the technical information and keep applying the security control against those tactical information, will be always helpful during those incidents, so that those repetitive incidents can be avoided for similar threats. And the last is after an attack. If attack is over, that doesn't mean everything is settled, the dust is over. No, it's a continuous process. Attacker on the other side of the table keep on reinventing the tools, the malware, and they have the motive vary sometime, the financial motive, the geopolitical motive, and based on the motive they keep on working. So that after an attack also you need to make sure that you have continuously documenting your learning. You are collaborating internally as well as externally about the attack which you have seen, the information which you have gathered, so somebody else can also learn from those and keep themselves safe against the similar attack which they will face. So it is important to apply the threat intel at all the three stages: when before an attack, during an attack, and after an attack. Now, three key pointers which I want to drive from uh, the whole program when you are planning to build, or any technology to help you for such kind of program. What are the three key important aspects to be taken care? One is the automation. Why automation? The obvious thing is we are short of manpower, and in cybersecurity is going to be there, and especially if this new domains like threat intelligence, very less people you will find who have the good understanding of the threat intelligence, and they can keep working on it. So you need to make sure that all the mundane tasks of your SOC or threat intel team has to be taken over by the machine, and definitely the time to respond on those intel which you are receiving has to cut down by the machine. That's why intel automation plays a key role. And as I said, tactical shift, you need to make sure that this kind of machines or the technology which you are deploying are not just focused on the technical aspect, but they are equally focused on the tactical aspect as well, and help you move towards the tactical strategy or the tactical countermeasures against the threat. And the collaboration. So the tools, technology, the framework should be equally good enough to help you collaborate for this threat intelligence within the organization, outside the organization as well. So let's take the cyber threat intelligence exchange framework of the product that we have. So as I said, if you see here on the right side, it takes care of the whole life cycle and the different stages which we talk from intel ingestion. And as I said, ingestion can happen from external, internal sources, and it can be structured, unstructured sources, and it will go through the life cycle of ingestion, collection, normalization, processing, correlation, enrichment, packaging, and dissemination. And obviously the collaboration is there when we talk about the dissemination, and it will be applied to the technology as well as it can go to the human. So human and machine both place, it will help you do the disseminate the information. And the high level if you see the salient features of this CITIX is the whole tactical threat intel platform. Obviously we have full hub and spoke sharing model which will take care of the intel collaboration, and then there's a whole piece of intel automation where using the rules and the score engine, it keeps on acting on those information automatically. The sticks are support very much required when we talk about this normalization phase. The people who are already aware, sticks is an open standard for threat intelligence language. So it's kind of a language about threat intel. Let's say when I want to communicate with someone and someone understands the English, so English is the language, and two people can communicate something in that English language. So similarly, when two entity, to machine to human, wants to share the information, so sticks is the standard which has been defined to talk a threat intel language. And currently there is a 6.2.1 standard which is available recently, which guides you that how and what kind of information can be shared across the board. And similarly the intel actioning as well as the MITRE ATT&CK heat map, which is more of the TTP correlation engine, which we say, where you keep harnessing the TTP data, the IOC data, the threat actor data, you keep fusing at one place, so that you can do the correlation and put out your own heat map that for your organization what are the TTPs are most priority, because TTPs are, right now it's 300 or around 400 plus TTP exist in the world, and at the day one you cannot have the countermeasure for all the TTPs. So you need to start somewhere in the staggered manner, and that's where the whole attack navigator heat map can help you focus on the specific TTPs which are more relevant for your organization. So first thing, let's talk about the automation. As I said, the three things we will focus: the automation, tactical shift, and the collaboration. So the first thing is the Intel automation using the CITIX. So I just try to decipher or the drill down further the life cycle which I was showing, and I have now put the more granular step where what machine can do. So the green ones that you see here are completely doable by the machine or the platform like CITIX, and the yellow one are the one where the human and machine plays the mixed role, where the analyst or the TI manager along with the platforms like CITIX can do those operation, and the red ones are still, I would say, more human focused, or still a lot of human dependent exercise. So also I've added one more governance layer here, because that becomes an important when you start maturing into your threat intel program, and you to start having the visibility that how your threat intel program is performing. You may have invested into many threat intel feed, so you want to calculate the ROI of this feed. Also you want to produce the intel report which are more contextual to your organization, or the metrics or the threat intel or the strategic information which you can put across your board about what kind of risk as in your organization is facing. And as I say, intel ingestion, you have intel segregation, intel tagging, and there are multiple other steps which can be done by machine. Under enrichment, external, internal enrichment from machine to machine. External, as I said, from VirusTotal, hybrid analysis, or any other sandbox can be done. Or within the organization, you want to do CMDB lookup, or internal watch list you are maintaining somewhere you want to look up. So those can be done by between the machines. But then there are correlations between the intel. Let's say this threat actor is associated with this TTP. This TTP I found in this malware hash. I want to correlate this. Somewhere it's a mixed role between the machine and the human, which will be able to perform this kind of operation. Collaboration, as I said, external intel and internal collaboration, both way. Human still plays a key role. That's my strong understanding. Machine will help you facilitate, but human has to say, yes, I want to share the information. Yes, I want to collaborate this intelligence within my organization with different team members as well as outside my organization, so that it can be helpful for everyone. And while it comes to decision making, maybe Intel scoring can be automated. We will see one subsequent slide that how machine can help you automatically score and segregate the intel, and act on those intel automatically. Investigation, visualization are still more of the human machine, where let's say some incident is observed by the SOC team, and or the incident response team wants to investigate that particular indicator, and I want more information about that malware, that okay, which malware family does it belong, what is the common infrastructure being used by this malware family and other similar malware family, okay, what sector does it target, what geography does it target, what threat actor are probable associated with this kind of threat campaign. So those investigation and visualization driven investigation, or data driven investigation, will still be human and machine dependent. TTP correlation, as I said, the whole attack navigator framework has tried to automate those correlation, and we'll walk through one example as well. Threat actor analysis is still human driven, as I said, where human plays a crucial role in terms of tracking. We have seen large enterprises are still not able to go towards this, because obviously it is more tricky. But a lot of security vendors, security partners are still doing this kind of threat-based analysis, and they keep sharing this information as part of their enterprise feed, or some as part of their OSINT strategies. And the response is Intel actioning. Still, it is automated at some extent, but human plays a role in terms of decision making, what to automate and what not to automate when you want to take action. For example, I don't want to automatically block some IP on my firewall, may have some business impact. While from a proxy perspective or a SIM watchlist perspective, I want to automate those tasks. So once the decision is taken, machine can keep on performing those automation. So this is the overall life cycle, and how the automation and the platform like CITIX can play a role along with the collaboration with the human. So the thing which I was telling in the previous slide, that how the whole scoring of the automation we need in terms of decision making and in terms of action. if you see here, we have the Intel being ingested, like, Intel is coming from my ISAC, which I've subscribed to, or peer groups are sharing some Intel, structured, unstructured, regulators are sharing an Intel with me. Let's say I'm a bank and, RBI shares some advisory with me, or as a critical infrastructure, NCIPC is sharing some information, or a CERT is sharing some information within the geography. So I want to consume those information, but once this information is there, I need to make sure that it is properly scored, and the scoring engine has to be allow you to make this Intel prioritization or the contextualization, which is very much relevant to you, and there are many criteria of the factor which will play a role. I just put high level 4 or 5 things that how you will prioritize, or based on the geography, based on the sector, sometimes based on the TLP, based on the threat campaign. Maybe you are a bank and you are following specific malware families you are interested, or specific threat actor you are tracking, or any intel which is related to the threat actor, or any intel which is related to other malware campaign. So there are multiple aspects using which you can have this scoring mechanism developed. And again, within the Cetix platform, we have out of the box algorithm which help you automatically score each and every intel, which will be very contextual to your organization. So that if you see here, using the scoring, once it is scored, you can use the rule engine as well, which will help you create multiple buckets of your intel. Let's say after scoring, I created this 4 bucket: critical intel, high, medium, and the low. And once this intel is segregated, I can, using the rule engine, I can automate, actioning on those segregated intel. Let's say for all critical intel, I want to perform preventive action. But for high, I want to send this intel to my detection technologies like SIM, UBA, Embed. But for medium, I just don't want to put into any technology stack. I just want to put to my analyst for manual review. And maybe low score intel, I don't want to do any action. I want to just deprecate. And this cycle is not one time. It has to be continuous basis. So it has to keep on calculating the new score very frequently. And whenever intel is not relevant, it should go and expire, or it should go and deprecate that intel as well. Otherwise, you will keep pushing or keep blocking this malicious IP URL hash in your firewall IPS, and you keep bombarding your network applications or the network security devices, which will put an additional overhead onto those technology. So you need to make sure that when this intel is relevant and it should be blocked, when it is not relevant, go ahead and unblock or deprecate that intel. And it's a continuous process that machine needs to help to do this automatically. Now coming to the next topic, which is how the whole technical to tactical shift. I just spoke very high level that how organizations are now started adopting the whole tactical aspects of threat intelligence. Even we have seen people going above and beyond, and mapping this tactical aspect into the risk management procedures as well, where people try to map the TTPs to the upcoming risk, and try to build a heat map that what kind of tactic or the tools or the procedure will be against used against my organization in, let's say, 6 months or in a year. So as I said, when we talk about this whole tactical to technical shift, we have to discuss the pyramid of pain. The people who have already seen might know this very old concept of pyramid of pain, that why it is called pyramid of pain. Because if you see this pyramid, if you start from the bottom layer and if you go towards upward, the pain of harnessing this information or acting upon this information always increases. If you see the bottom layer, as I was saying, more technical, which is IP, domain, URL, hash. As you go up the ladder, it talks about more tools and the TTPs. So harnessing the TTP is always a difficult task. Acting upon those TTP or putting the security control for those TTP is obviously a time-consuming task. So the pain increases as you go up the ladder. So if you just compare average life for most of the type of data which we have on the lower side of the pyramid, more technical in nature, average lifespan of this indicators is 48 hours to 15 days, sometimes maybe 30 days. But attacker keep on changing these indicators. While on the other side, the average lifetime is properly a lifetime once past specific TTP. For example, that somebody can do a credential dumping from memory using PowerShell. Now you go and apply a group policy in our Active Directory and make sure that the policy is applied and nobody will be able to touch the LSS .exe, which is the critical process for Microsoft Windows. And nobody from the system process should be ever touch that process and dump the credential onto the disk. So this kind of process is prevented. Or maybe I can write a EDR signature into my EDR tools that somebody ever attempt to do this kind of technique in any of the laptop, desktop, or a server, immediately raise an alarm so that investigation can be started. So once you have deciphered those TTP and put a detective or preventive control for this TTP, it's a lifetime. Maybe now you need to look more towards the new TTP which attacker will target. So as I said, this is easy to import and act, which is while this one is more difficult to implement and act upon. This is short-term defense, and this is more of the long-term defense. Now, how the Citrix kind of technology or the TIP platforms can use this? So within the Cyber Threat Intel Exchange platform, we have multiple modules which help you achieve the whole tactical aspects. So the first thing is, so there are three things. First, obviously, you should have the capability to store this kind of data. So that's where threat data objects is there. We support not just indicator, but the malware, campaign, threat actor, intrusion set, attack pattern, which is more of the TTP in nature. Then once I have the data, I have stored the data. The tool also should me allow you to relate the data with each other and allow me to visualize the relations between the technical data to the tactical data. And obviously this is not straightforward. That's why you need this correlation engine which I was talking. So we are using the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator as a framework within the platform, which helps you allow continuously map your indicator to the TTPs to the threat actor, so that correlation is happening and you are able to visualize the data whenever is required. So when you have the incident, you proactively know where to focus and what to focus. And this attack navigator we have seen are also used by the SOC team, threat hunting team, the risk management teams as well, to identify the most popular TTPs or the threats against my organization, so they can start building the use case around into the SOC for detection. They start building the threat hunting hypothesis, or the risk management team can start go and focus around the risk assessment around those tactics or the TTPs which are more popular within my organization. So this ends the story of the technical to tactical aspect and how the machine can help you do this. Obviously, there is a collaboration of human and machine is required. Now, the last part which we want to focus is the collaboration, that why and how the collaboration can be done when we talk about the threat intel. And we will talk into two parts. One is the internal collaboration, and then we will talk about the external. So internal collaboration. So if I don't know if you guys have heard the concept of fusion center, just getting popular in many geographies, many large enterprise, large banks we have seen now, people started implementing this fusion center, where it's no more a siloed threat response or a siloed cybersecurity response to any attack, but it has to be more collaborative. So all the team members who are somewhere related to the cyber ecosystem has to jointly come together and respond or prepare the organization for any upcoming cyber threats. So threat intel also plays a key role into this whole fusion center. That's why Citrix kind of a product also comes into the play to allow you to collaborate within the organization. Let's say first example is the SOC analyst. So as I said in the previous slide, that people are now using the more tactical data to build the SOC use case out of the threat intel information which I have. Similarly, incident responders, when they are responding to any attack or incident, they want to look up that, okay, this malware or the CNC which I am observing, how it is related, what kind of relation it exists to any other threat actor or any other TTPs. Similarly, threat hunters, they can use the threat intel while building their hunt hypothesis. Obviously, this is one of the method, because threat hunting is very diverse activity. There are multiple types of threat hunting. One of the type is intel driven hunting, And that's where we have seen organization today do the more IOC driven hunting, but now threat hunters have also started doing TTP driven hunting, which is more tactical in nature. They build the hunt hypothesis around the TTPs, and then they start go hunt those threats within their organization. Similarly, vulnerability management team also now are leveraging the threat intel information to triage the vulnerability, because if say the large organization and we are observing a very large number of vulnerability data sets, so which one to prioritize? Obviously, threat intel plays a very crucial role. Let's say I have one vulnerability open, and now I know that the same vulnerability is used by WannaCry or maybe a Maze ransomware to exploit any product vulnerability, and this is recently being used by any specific threat actor. So obviously I will prioritize the patching of those vulnerability within my infrastructure. So vulnerability triaging level also, the threat intel comes to the rescue. Similarly, security architect. So this is something new which we have seen that while designing the whole architecture or while taking the new technology purchase decisions, architects have also started leveraging the threat intel, saying that okay, currently I have firewall, IPS, maybe an anti-APT solution or a sandbox deployed at network behind my proxy, or I have a sandbox deployed on my endpoint, or let's say I have EDR deployed on my endpoint. So any new technology decision I will make, I will just first go and check, okay, I have this 10 technology in my organization. Let me map the capabilities, that what kind of threat this technologies can block, and what are the popular threat which I as an organization facing, and let me put a heat map saying that okay, these are the 10 threats faced by organization, and you have this 10 technology which can accommodate to your 7 threats, and which will be able to successfully either block or detect this 7 threat. But there are 3 threats which are still observed by your organization, and you don't have any technology which can prevent this kind of threat or detect this kind of threat. So maybe it's a time you invest in those technology which will help you detect or prevent this kind of technology. And if somebody wants to know, there is the open source project started by MITRE as well, called Attack Eval. So many organizations are also using that whole attack eval or the attack evaluation when they do any new technology purchase around this security controls, countermeasures. Similarly, fraud management team, while doing the fraud analysis, can leverage the threat intel. And as I said, risk management team, while doing the risk analysis, risk assessment, can also leverage the threat intel information. This is the whole story within the one organization, how people are leveraging, or how people can leverage the tools like CITIX to collaborate within the organization. Similarly, as I said, CITIX also has this whole hub and spoke architecture, and companies are also willing to share this information, collaborate this information. Maybe they're within the private ecosystem. Let's say I'm a large company and I have 5 subsidiary company, and there are 2 critical vendors working in my ecosystem. So there are 10 critical entity within my ecosystem which are critical, and they may be never able to invest into the threat intel platform kind of thing. So as a large organization, I want to put a hub at one place, and I want to start disseminating the threat intel information to them, which is relevant to them, not everything. And once they also see any attack or any incident, they should be able to report me any intel around those incidents using the same infrastructure. That's where this whole hub and spoke concept is coming into the picture. And also as a CITIX, we have this hub and spoke where let's say this example where one of the critical third party of my organization, they observe any incident in one of the technology which they have deployed, and they report that intel with me. Obviously, I can go and start enriching that information from internal, external sources, and I can calculate the score, that how much important this intel is for me right now or for my ecosystem right now. And then based on the revised score, because now I have the new scoring based on the learning I have from my ecosystem, I will start again sharing this information back to the other communities like Isaac Cert or peer organization or other subsidiary companies of my organization, and I will receive the feedback from them. And based on that feedback, again, the dynamically the scoring will change, and I will have the community collaboration score, and the score again I can go and act upon within my organization. So this is how the overall Citrix kind of a platform or any machine can help you collaborate the threat intel information in real time between multiple entities, and we can leverage the power of collaboration, because this threat intel is more valuable when it comes to the collaboration. As you see, let's take an example of in real life. Let's say we are staying in one society, and uh, there any robbery happens, and then you document all the aspects of that robbery, that what kind of tools were used, what time the robbery happened, how somebody was able to bypass the lock and key, and when it got entered into the house, what kind of things got stolen, and you have any information about the thief, the demographic information, or any sketch being built for those, and then you start distributing this information within the society, within the area, so that everybody is aware about the attack that you have faced, or the robbery that you have faced, and people can be aware and proactive about similar attack, similar robbery which will happen to them. So in a similar fashion, in cyber world also, it is most important to collaborate, to share. And obviously the most important concern I hear from the people is the anonymity of the data, because when you start sharing the information, it means that you are under attack. And that's why we need to leverage on the technologies, so that without giving out a name, you are able to collaborate within your private community of 10 members, or a public community, and can get the learning shared with each other. And when I say threat intel, it's not just about the information about the attacks, but also how you have put the defense against that attack. Let's say there was attack, and I put this custom IPS signature, custom EDR signature I created, and this is the SIM rule I have written. So all the defenses that you have put against those attack also is equally important to share those, that how to defend yourself against this kind of attack. So that's completes the whole collaboration ecosystem. Uh, Takeaways. So as I was keep focusing that when you are planning to build your threat intelligence program, it has to be balanced between the human and the machine. You cannot over rely on machine, or cannot over rely on the human, because not everything will be done by one. So that it has to be balanced. And the three key important aspect which we gone through is automate your threat intel. So whatever you can automate where machine can play a role, you should be continuously automating those to keep your human resource cost low, and also to keep them free for any advanced analysis, rather than wasting their time on the mundane task of just collecting the intel and manually enriching those intel by looking up some tools. So we need to make sure that all the mundane tasks of the human are carried forward by the machine, so that they can more focus on the tactical analysis. So where it will help you more predict the upcoming threats. So the whole technical to tactical shift, where machine the human still needs to play a very crucial role, so they can focus on those aspects more rather than on the operational aspect. And obviously the collaboration, as we have seen, the internal external collaboration, that's where as a strategy, these are the three important pillar. And as a platform, the cyber threat intel exchange, we go by the full form itself. It covers the whole life cycle automation, prediction aspect, as well as the collaboration aspect, which is required for any threat intel organization, or any threat intel framework which somebody is trying to implement within one organization. So with that, I will stop here. Over to you, Rudy. Any question if you want to take up? If anyone has any question, please feel free to post.
Thank you so much, Mr. Afkas Kateria. There are a couple of questions that has already came in the queue, but prior beginning of the questions, I would like to request again to all the participants, if you wish to ask any questions regarding to the subject of the call, please post your queries on the chat appearing on the right side of your console. Repeating and requesting again, participants, you are requested to post your queries on the chat appearing on the right side of your console. With that said, sir, the first question is coming up from Jaya Ramchandran Rajendran, and the question reads out as, is Psycognito your product? If so, how is that different from Cyvera?
Sorry, what was the product name?
The question reads out as, is Cognito your product? If so, how is it different from Cyber?
I'm not about the Cognito. So our product is the Cyber Threat Intel Exchange, and it falls under the standard category of the TIP. If you know today, threat intelligence platform which exists, and there are many open source as well as paid enterprise TIP products which generally help you automate your threat intel life cycle. And the first thing I want to clarify, this is not the feed I'm talking about. This is a platform I'm talking about here. Because feed is you may have from other enterprise like FireEye, CrowdStrike, Symantec, McAfee. There are many, and there are also OSINT. A lot of OSINT sources we have, regulatory sources we have. The problem we are trying to solve here is the underlying platform which can help you make sure you are consuming the right information and acting upon those information in the real time, and also have a correct context around those, and also you are able to do more predictive operations and collaborative operations in the nature. So that's about the cybersetics platform, and it's just a platform. I hope
Thank you
that
so much.
answers.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming up from Mr. Pradipta Patro. The question reads out as, hope this solution is based on SOAR, SOAR and framework.
So let me clarify. So SOAR, it's a different product, security orchestration and automated response, where, as I said, if you take the NIST framework, identify, prevent, detect, respond, right? So SOAR somewhere fits into the respond bucket, where once you detect any attack from your SIEM, manually, UBA, embed, we have so many detection platform. How to automate your response, that part is handled by the SOAR product. Okay, and that's where you can so the full form says security orchestration and automated response. That's more reactive in nature. What I am talking here is the TIP, threat intel platform, which is more predictive in nature. Before the incident happen, how can you proactively learn about those attack and proactively block those attacks? And obviously there has to be right collaboration between the SOAR and TIP, because when it comes to automating your threat intelligence, you want to act. So many companies take this step where they integrate the TIP platform with the SOAR, and the SOAR goes and perform a specific automation. But many independent companies who don't have a SOAR, they start with the TIP. So TIP also has its own orchestration component, because orchestration is now the need of an hour. Till now, industry was focusing more on, okay, orchestration I want to do from incident response, but that's not the case now, because orchestration is becoming equally important on all the aspect. Threat intel team asking for orchestration, as we have seen here. Threat hunting, down the line, we are seeing many use case for orchestration into hunting. Vulnerability management team, obviously there are many use case to orchestrate many things around vulnerability. Similarly, incident response, SOC team. So many cybersecurity teams or within the Fusion Center, orchestration will be required across the different stakeholders. So though SOAR as a terminology was more focused around orchestration for incident response, but now we are slowly seeing that orchestration is becoming a part of all different stakeholders. And that's where threat intel also, orchestration plays one crucial role when it comes to automating your intel actioning.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming up from Love Vishwakarma. The question reads out as, how will be the retention on IOC here? How do you segregate TIP as per the industry?
Awesome question, I would say. Whoever has asked this question, I really appreciate, because now we actually talk about the ground level challenges which are being faced. As I was telling continuously, because I've been there on the ground running the SOC, IR team, threat intel, I've seen that uh, there are a lot of information, a lot of IOCs which we keep on receiving on a daily basis. And it becomes utmost important for us to understand and us to handle so much data, so much IOC, what to prioritize, what not to prioritize, what to act upon, what not to act upon, when to expire this intel. So if you see the whole life cycle, and if we just ingest the technical IOC into that life cycle, at each stage, the machine needs to help me in terms of what to store. And that's why I say in the life cycle, each and every phase is important. When you collect the intel, after collecting, you need to make sure that you are building the context around that intel. And that's why, if you remember, I was showing one slide where intel scoring was happening and the intel segregation was happening. So if I just go back and show, and that's the exact thing which, if you see here you need to, once you start creating your buckets, let's say IOCs are put into different bucket, and this is where your decision making comes, that, whether once you take more stringent action, then the priority of the action gets lowered as the score is low. And when the score is really low, I want to go and deprecate this intel. I don't want to store, or I don't want to keep it anywhere into the tool. So, but still, we have seen companies keep on storing this kind of data into the tip platform. And this strategy, again, vary. Let's say organization says, I want to store the IOC data for last 1 year into my platform, and then I will start auto archiving into, or I will start taking a tape backup. Why sometimes people take this decision is because more of the regulatory compliance aspect. Because I've seen, I got some intel, I blocked on firewall, and suddenly after 3 months or 6 months, somebody comes and asks me, hey, you processed this IP 6 months back on this firewall. What was the reason? What was the score that time? Why you blocked this? So I need to go back in time and check why I processed that intel or that IOC. And that's the reason people still wants to store those IOCs for a longer period. And after X amount of days or month or year, they want to auto archive and put it off the console. But from that is more from a storage aspect. And as I said, from an action aspect, as a life cycle, people wants to act on it, be it on preventive technology, detection based technology. And then when the time comes, you expire. And this expiry of the IOC or the deprecation of the IOC is also multifold. Some might do more static in nature, where I can write a thumb rule every 30 days expire the IOC, which is more static. Some might write a dynamic rule based on the current score of the IOC you deprecate. Let's say one indicator came, the current score was 90, I blocked on the firewall, but next 15 days, that no IP was no more hosting any malicious thing, the score went to 20, the tool will go and auto deprecate, unblock from the firewall. But let's say after 1 month, again somebody starts using the same IP for malicious activity, score again goes to 80, and then again you block the IP. So that's a whole dynamic way of acting on your intel.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming up from Satyajit Dash. The question reads out as, decision making is more of threatening, hunting, I feel.
I did not get the question, but if I understand correctly, I would say decision making. I was talking more on the context of threat intelligence, and as I was saying, that decision making has to be done by human and machine both. When I say machine, this is what I was explaining, the score engine, where based on the multiple criteria, the machine can score. But many times we have seen that human also plays a crucial role when you start analyzing more tactical intel, because technical intel is still easy to score or easy to make a decision based on the different aspect. But when it comes to tactical, let's say if any one TTP you want to score or you want to make any decision, still a human plays a crucial role. And that's where to prioritize any TTP or to work on any TTP, there are multiple teams, starting from your incident response team, threat hunting team. Multiple teams will play a role to act on any TTP, or you want to simulate any TTP, you might call a red team, and then you call a threat hunting team to identify the respective threat in that particular system for that particular TTP, then to document the learning and hand it over the use case to a SOC for continuous detection. So it's a collaboration which can play a role between the human when you talk about tactical aspect, but at the technical level, still machine can help you.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming up from Pradeepta Patro. The question is divided into three parts. The first question is, who are the competitors of CITEX in India and Asia? The second part of the question reads out as, what are the service delivery model, OMN, PRIM, cloud integration with Azure, AWS, or GCP? And the third part of the question is, where CITEX getting threat feed from, OEMs or own database?
So, Avkash, allow me to answer this. So, part one of the question, the competition of CITEX in India, Asia, I will take it offline with you, Pavitra. There are a few competitors, but we will talk it offline. On the second part, in terms of the service delivery models, we support on-prem, we support cloud, we support hybrid. We also support, in certain scenarios, some customers have asked for air-gap environment, and we have supported air-gap environment deployment also. On the third part, if you're asking for threat feed, as Avkash mentioned earlier in the call, primarily we are a platform company and not a feed company. So feeds, there could be multiple different sources. However, in general practice, Cyber also is providing, you can say, a collection of OSINT, which is open sources. So a lot of open source feeds we do provide along with the solution. But again, as I said, those are open sources, and we have connectors for a lot of OEMs, third-party OEMs.
Yes. So as a threat intel, we have the partnership with most of the popular, and we have out-of-the-box connector. So in terms of that, we are agnostic to any feed you want to ingest into the platform. We don't restrict.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming up from Mr. Raja Nagendra Kumar. The question reads out as, what is Intel? Is it related to Intel company or is it just threat intelligence?
So when I say Intel, it's a proper cyber threat intelligence, which is I'm talking, and it plays both role. So it, as I say, it contextual. So in few aspect, you want Intel which is related to your organization, where if you take example of operational type of Intel, well, still people are more focusing on the Intel about your organization, Intel about your customer data getting breached, Intel about your vulnerability being discussed into the dark web. But that's one part of the story. Intel also means the attacks which are observed globally. Let's say you are a bank based out of India, but you should be equally considerate about the attacks which are happening into the banking industry in US or Europe, because there's a high chance that with similar sector or similar geography, if other companies are facing those attacks, you want to proactively have those attack information. So that is also a type of threat intelligence. So it is both, I would say, proactive intel about your organization as well as proactive intel about the other attacks happening other geography, other sector part of the world.
Thank you so much. Looking at the time constraint, we will take the next two questions. The second last question is coming up from Mr. Suman Das. The question reads out as, in future, with the advent of technology and its maturity, will the security experts be extinct and only security researchers will remain?
That's a tough question to answer because nobody knows future. But if you ask me on a personal view, I would still say machine will be able to do those tasks where all the mundane tasks which human are doing today, machine will be obviously able to take care on the first phase. The second comes the analysis part, and this is where still human is playing the heavy role. But with the advent, we are seeing that machine learning or artificial intelligence coming and playing a role. A lot of those analysis tasks will be automated and taken over by the machine. But I still don't see 100%, but some extent, or maybe like 70-80%. But still, human will play a role in terms of the analysis. And the third aspect is research, which obviously will be more focused only and only on the human, where human will still keep leading the research aspect and will keep giving a feedback to the machines, because that's where machine will become more intelligence to take over the load of the human in the analysis phase.
Thank you so much. The next and the last question in the queue coming up from Mr. N.K. Jan. The question reads out as, you told decision making is machine based as well as man based, technical as tactical. But you know, man based decisions making are mostly non reliable in long term. Then how do you tell this system is foolproof for decision making?
That's an excellent question. So as I said, let me just go back to that slide. Why I say it's a combination of human and machine. Okay, let me just show you this one. So I agree to your point. What you're saying is, there are high chances that as a human we might or we may make a mistake, and that's why, as I say, it's a loop. It's a feedback loop between the human and machine which needs to run, because machine itself is not smart enough to take all the decisions, and it may need some help of a human. And human alone is not self-reliant to take 100% perfect decisions. That's why whenever I have a learning as a human, I need to keep giving that feedback back to the machine. And as a machine, whenever the output is generated, I need to give my opinion whether it's true or not. If you go back to the example of machine learning, and in the recent example we have seen, people have started applying the machine learning in threat intel as well. Well, let's say I received one article, and then I give it to the machine automatically read that article, and using machine learning, it extracted the tokens of TTP and threat actor. But data is now machine has extracted some token, but is it 100% correct or not? It gives the human that, okay, tell me, is it 100% accurate? And human will say, okay, out of this 10 things that you identify, 8 are accurate, 2 still needs this improvement. This is the improvement. This is a feedback loop. Now again, this go back to the machine, and machine next time will ensure that the same mistake is not repeated, and machine will become more intelligent. This is example on the machine learning aspect. But I have seen the larger companies, when they do the threat actor analysis or the threat report, or any strategic report they are writing, we have seen that they rely on the hypothesis building, because nowhere they conclude 100% attribution to any threat. Let's say whenever I see any new malware or the new malware family being targeted to specific organization or specific sector, I start building the hypothesis, because nothing is concrete right now for the human. So I will say, okay, this seems to be relevant to this TTP, and this TTP indirectly used by these 5 threat actors. So let me start giving the hypothesis that this is the work of probably this 5 threat actor. I have seen this one attack. Now this hypothesis is that the confidence on this hypothesis is 10%. But let's say after 1 month or 15 days, the machine reports the next attack, and then from the same attack, from the same learning, I again run the hypothesis, and now I had the 5 hypotheses, out of which one hypothesis confidence score went from 20% to 50%. Similarly, after the third attack, 50 went to 80 or 90. So I am building multiple hypotheses, and then I am giving the rating of each hypothesis based on the learning which I am having from my machine. And there's a stage will come where I will define some thumb rule. Okay, now there's a 90% hypothesis match. This is a 100% job of this threat actor, or this is the specific threat which I was guessing is accurate. So I agree. There are chances that nobody will be able to predict 100%, and that's why the mathematics plus human plus machine equally has to work into the ecosystem and try predicting the upcoming threats.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to request the respected speaker, please go ahead with your closing comments.
I would say I will just reiterate on the things that we discussed. So we have just seen, if you summarize, we started with the overall threat intelligence. First of all, we need to understand that why threat intelligence is becoming important aspect of the cybersecurity strategy, to give your strategy more predictive angle. And then once you decide, okay, I need to go ahead with the threat intelligence, then the whole maturity approach that you will take, because in day one or in the one go, you may not reach the nirvana stage. So you need to decide that how your crawl, walk and run approach towards the whole framework implementation will look like. In crawl approach, what are the things that you start? what are the things that you start automating with using the machine, because you don't have a dedicated manpower taking care of your threat intel. And then you go to the walk approach, then you start having the dedicated human resources along with the machine where you are automating the intel. And then comes the last walk where you start doing more predictive and more collaborative threat intel operations.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to request all the respected participants, before the moment the call is ended, you will get a feedback form. I would like to request if you can please participate and answer the questions. There are 2 questions, requesting to answer the questions, as your feedback is very, very valuable for us. Before wrapping up, I would like to thank these respected speakers as well as the panelist members along with the participants for joining the webinar. Wish you all have a great day ahead, requesting to please stay safe. Thank you so much once again. Have a great day ahead.